The Wonderful World of Darklords. Report 39. Prydain. My first impression of Prydain was a positive one. Although it lacks the raw, natural beauty of Dunbrock, this is partly because it has been more thoroughly settled, and I enjoyed the thought of not spending any nights camping in the forest. The mountains, forests, and valleys are interspersed with villages and stretches of farmland, giving an impression of bucolic peace. At least, until one stumbles upon a farm whose residents have been put to the sword, and whose resources have been plundered to feed the invading armies of the realm's great enemy, the Horned King. My first encounter with those armies, however, was not one of those murderous raiding parties, but a raiding party of a different sort. I came across a large burial mound and a group of men pulling the corpses from it. Grave robbers, I thought with disdain. But, to my surprise, rather than stripping the corpses of their valuables and leaving them behind, they dragged the corpses themselves to a nearby wagon. One of the men spotted me and shouted for his compatriots, who immediately knocked their arrows to run me off. I assumed my form of dread in response. They cowered away from me, and immediately begged my forgiveness and asked if I had brought them new orders from their master. It seemed that, despite his lack of horns, my patron bore a marked resemblance to the dreaded Horned King. It was irksome that anyone would believe I had such low standards, but it could certainly be useful.
Welcome to Wonderful World of Darklords. I'm Tom.
I'm Rachel.
And we're discussing how to convert Disney movies to Ravenloft domains of dread, even though we already have an evil Lich King at home.
That's exactly the kind of thing an assistant pig keeper would say. Along the way, we'll look at the Darklord, the domain itself, and some plot hooks and adaptation ideas to integrate this setting into your own campaign.
Today's episode, The Black Cauldron.
Ooh.
Ooh, happy Hocktober, happy Halloween, happy most Ravenlofty of months.
Yes.
And for that most Ravenlofty of months, we wanted one of the most Octoberiest, Halloweeniest Disney films that we have not already covered.
Yeah, we already did Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yes, we've covered almost all of Oogie Boogie's Super Scary Halloween Parade, or whatever it is. We've covered a lot of your, iconic Disney Halloween movies. So we have to move on to some of sort of the less well-known, less, in the parade. And I did Google to check, and no, not in the parade. But for a particular slice of the fandom, a particular generational people, The Black Cauldron is one of those, core Disney Halloween, Disney horror pieces. Way back in our Beauty and the Beast episode, which I hope you listened to because it's really good.
Statistically, most of you have.
Yes, but we talked about how the Beast castle and Belle walking around and the Beast Wing and everything, there is that kind of generation where that was one of their very first, hits of the Gothic and, hits of horror.
Yeah.
And for people that are about 5 to 10 years older, this movie, the whole ambiance, the whole vibe, but especially specifically that Cauldron-born scene, is that first hit of horror. That first, I am terrified and I desperately want more of this forever. That all horror fans have, that horror core memory.
Just, this movie is flawed, but that animation is unappeasable.
Oh, good.
My
It's
gosh.
so beautiful, yeah. This is also an excellent choice for us to cover. Not only is it got that legendary Cauldron-born scene, a sort of a general spooky vibe, general spooky, darker take than a lot of Disney movies, but like Brave, like our previous episode, it is one of the main, high fantasy, sword and sorcery, D&D adjacent Disney movies.
I feel like there's a genre of horror that's being getting a lot of play that's going to come up.
But stay tuned to find out. But yes, like we mentioned, Brave is one of the most D&D movies there is, and this is also one of the most D&D movies Disney's ever made.
Yes.
And pretty much every Disney movie is a fantasy, but this one is a fantasy with +1 magic swords against undead and necrotic damage and evil cauldrons and sword fights and this is one of their most D&D movies. Bards, yes, with magic liars who are not liars. And
because the liars won't let them be liars.
Liars won't let them be liars. But this is a darker, spookier movie than Brave, So both of these are very, very D&D movies, but D&D plus darker, spookier is Ravenloft.
Yes,
so,
it is.
Right, like you absolutely could make the argument this is in like top 3 most Ravenlofty movies Disney's ever done.
Mm-hmm.
So this movie is not nearly as well represented in, Disney media. It's not in the Spooky Parade. It's not up there with Nightmare Before Christmas or Headless Horseman, Ichabod Crane.
But there's a particular aspect of it that's represented in both Villainous and Sorcerer's Arena.
Yes, the board games.
Mm-hmm.
The movie does still have a cult following today.
Mm-hmm.
And almost all, I think like 90 to 95% of that cult following is based on one particular element of the movie, who is a character in an expansion for both the Sorcerer's Arena board game and the Disney Villainous board game.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about our Darklord of this most Ravenlofty Disney movie. Let's talk about the Horned King in a section we like to call
The Lord. The Lord. It should have been easier for me to gain information about a Dreadlord when his minions believed that I outranked them, but the mental acuity of those minions left much to be desired. They informed me that they were the Horned King's huntsmen. After a few minutes of conversation with them, I believe that the sole qualification for this position is to identify the business end of a sword at least one time out of 3, and that they were bringing the corpses back to his castle to become Cauldron-born. The Horned King did not currently possess the Black Cauldron, the magic item that would allow him to reanimate these corpses as his undead army, but he had possessed it for brief periods in the past, and the huntsmen were confident that he would eventually find it again. The huntsman told me that the Horned King commanded several Cauldron-born from previous times that he had gained control of the artifact. From their descriptions, it seemed that the Cauldron-born had the mindless obedience of zombies, but were faster and hardier, immune to all non-magical forms of attack. I did not know at first whether to credit this as truth or superstition. The credulous huntsman also claimed that the Horned King was a powerful necromancer, but I saw no evidence that he had any magical abilities whatsoever, and a necromancer would have no need of the cauldron to animate the dead for him. Later encounters with the Cauldron-born, however, verified these claims. I could learn little else from the huntsman, so, after handing them a jar of spiced peaches and informing them that the Horned King wanted them to dig for corpses in Camp Green Lake, I began gathering information from other sources. It seems that the Horned King was once the general of a ruthless conqueror named Arawn, and that Arawn's defeat centuries ago culminated in his soul being forged into the cauldron. The Horned King continued to lead his armies on a campaign of violent conquest, but without Arawn's magic to support them, they were massacred. So powerful was the Horned King's will that he was able to return from the dead. His soldiers did not follow suit. When I later traveled to the Horned King's castle, I was able to infiltrate the Hall of Warriors, in which he kept the bodies of his former soldiers, all of which were preserved with something close to tenderness, whereas the corpses from the burial mounds were crammed into the catacombs beneath the castle like garments in an overstuffed wardrobe. I cast Speak with Dead without much hope of success. Surely the Horned King's loyal soldiers would refuse to tell me anything, and was astonished by the results. For one thing, the Horned King's soldiers seemed to be trapped in some hellish state between death and undeath. They were not undead, as Speak with Dead would not have worked otherwise, but they had a level of awareness of their existence after death, hoarded away like gold in a miser's treasury. For another, they had no desire to continue serving their erstwhile general. They were dead and gone. They wanted nothing more than to pass on to their eternal rest, particularly as they knew that what little remained of their minds and memories would be destroyed in the cauldron. As the Horned King had no magic with which to speak to them, however, they could not tell him as much, nor did they believe that he would listen if they could. Thus, he continued with his obsessive desire to resurrect them, convinced that undoing the deaths he had caused was the only way he could make amends to his beloved warriors. R.I.P. John Hurt, the GOAT.
The best. So, as I said, this movie still does have today a devoted cult following. Once again, that whole micro-generation, that was that first experience of horror cinema, was watching The Black Cauldron. And the thing that sticks around, the thing that's in the board games, the thing that's in the Funko Pops, the thing that's in the Mickey's House of Mouse cameo, the thing that is most remembered is that villain, that excellently spooky Halloweeny villain, the Horn King.
Was he in Once Upon a Studio? I know that Gurgi and Taran and Alonwi were, but I don't know.
I cannot remember.
Okay.
We'll have to rewatch it.
Yeah. Darn.
Which I don't mind doing. If you haven't seen it, it's on Disney Plus. It's really good.
So, it made me tear up.
It's like a lot of the Disney Studios 100th anniversary stuff was a bit of a fiasco. Cough wish. But this was legitimately everything they wanted. Yeah, and everything you would want.
Once Upon a Studio was amazing.
Yes. So, the Horn King, he's still here. He's still around. He's still sticking in people's memories. He's still selling Funko Pops. But there is a little bit of a problem from our end, because he's an amazing villain, but he's not necessarily an amazing Darklord. He has got an amazing vibe. Like, everything about him, he's got an amazing look.
Great theme music. Great voice performance. As mentioned, R.I.P. John Hurt. Great just overall everything. But he does not have a lot of psychological complexity or motivation. Yeah, he's a very Sauron, and if you just want to do Sauron, then that's fine, but that doesn't work for Ravenloft. That doesn't work for a Dark Lord.
Yes. He's a great villain, but a great Disney villain does not necessarily need a ton of complex motivation or psychological depth or backstory. However, a great Ravenloft Dark Lord does. However, we have, pulling out our role, because it's not the first time we have had to make a mountain out of a molehill. Yes. Finding little bits of dialogue and world building we can weave psychological complexity out of. So we dusted off our old Evil Queen Maleficent playbook. And we did think we found some interesting bits of dialogue that we can, with great speculation on our part.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Weave into a character that has all that cool spooky villain ambiance, but also has, hopefully, the psychological complexity, the backstory, the motivation that makes a good Dark Lord. But if you are a hashtag Disney adult, I'm sure you know who the Horn King is. If you know nothing else about the Black Cauldron. But you might not know what a Dark Lord is and why they need psychological motivation, depth, backstory, etc. So, Rachel, what is a Dark Lord?
Well, a Dark Lord is an evil being who commits some kind of act of ultimate darkness that causes the dark powers to say, why, hello, new friend, we want to play with you forever. And so they pluck that evil being up and they place them in a domain which is a special hell tailor-made just for them. There are some really great Dark Lords. There are some not so great Dark Lords. So we are going to discuss the 4 qualities that separate the Strahd von Zaroviches from the Inzakolvoviches. Speaking of Dark Lords with no psychological complexity. Yeah. So the first of those 4 qualities is that act of ultimate darkness. They did some kind of specific evil thing that drew the Dark Power's attention. They didn't just do a bunch of, little things and become a Dark Lord by attrition. And in Strahd's case, it's that he killed his brother because he wanted to get with his brother's fiancée. Our second element is what they call in Vanderton's Guide to Ravenloft the Torment. Because we're a Disney podcast, we call it They Got What They Wanted, They Lost What They Had. And in Strahd's case, it's congratulations, your brother's out of the way, you have eternal youth, so you're not too old for Tatiana anymore, but you're too Strahd for Tatiana, and you always will be. Our third element is an element of tragedy or relatability. They're not just evil for the sake of being evil, unlike Inzakolvovich and the Horned King as written. There's something about them that makes us wince in sympathy, and in Strahd's case, it's that unrequited love is just the second worst, because Bellows is the worst.
Yes.
And then our fourth element is that the domain reflects the Dark Lord and their curse in some way. Strahd is the Dark Lord of spooky vampire fantasy Transylvania. He is not the Dark Lord of spooky lich fantasy Wales. And Barovia is a boring mud slump to reflect that curse of loneliness. He's lonely because he can't be with Tatiana, but he's also lonely because everybody in Barovia is a boring peasant, so there's nobody there to be like an intellectual equal to him.
Also, his name isn't hard enough to pronounce.
Yes.
To be Dark Lord of Wales. Not enough random consonants.
Not enough W's.
So, if you were going through this, you were like, wow, the Horn King is none of those, question mark. Maybe number 4?
Maybe, yeah. It kind of a torment, because he's looking for the Black Cauldron. Yeah. I guess. So, to have that interesting, that engaging Dark Lord, a lot of these do circle around, as we said, specific backstory and a specific motivation, psychological complexity. And we have none of those from the Horn King. No. Because he's just an evil guy. He's Sauron. We're going to tell a story now that might embarrass our son, our oldest, if he listens to the
podcast, which hopefully is incentive for him to listen to it. And he was...
He loves D&D, he loves Disney, but he will never listen to our podcast because we're his parents, so that means it's not cool.
So, which is probably safe telling the story.
Yes.
So, I think he was 6 or 7.
I think he might have been... Yeah, I think he was even younger than that.
Yeah. I think he was 5. And we're watching the Disney movie Enchanted, which I hope you've seen. Is delightful.
It's so good.
And the villainess is Queen Nerissa, who's played by Susan Sarandon. Mm-hmm. And she has her little... who's the actor? Who's the...
Oh, Peter Pettigrew. What's his name? Yeah.
He's her henchman. He's in love with her. And...
Timothy Spall.
Yes. At one point, he's doing what she wants, and our son is like, how could he do that? And Rachel, I remember, said, like, oh, well, he thinks she's wonderful. He wants to kiss her. And he said in a tone of absolute outrage.
Such outrage.
Wonderful? How could someone evil be wonderful? And Rachel said, well, he doesn't know she's evil. And then our son responded,
but she's wearing such evil clothes!
Yes! And that's hard to argue with. She's wearing, if you haven't seen her, Google it, she's wearing very evil clothes.
She's wearing very evil clothes.
And the Horn King is wearing such evil clothes. Like, what do you want from us?
Yes.
The makers of this movie say, look at his outfit.
It's like the GM shows you the portrait of the NPC and it's hope we're done, right?
Like, this is it. This is the guy. So go kill him. Look at his hat.
He's wearing such evil clothes.
Such evil clothes. But our job is to do our best to make an engaging darklord out of him. So a lot of from here is speculation.
Yes.
Right? This is one of those, this is not at all supported in the text.
Including in the books, because I read all 5 of them in preparation for this episode, and in the books, he is also, he's wearing such evil clothes, and the Horned King is like Arawn's general in the first book, and he gets killed at the end of the first book, and then Arawn is like the Sour. Like, it's like the Horned King's like the Lord of the Nazgul, but except that he gets killed in the first book instead of in Return of the King. And then Arawn is Sauron, and like, we tried bringing in elements of both, but there are no elements of both to bring in. They don't have any elements of tragedy or relatability. They're evil clothes. They're both evil clothes.
So we are and we have Arawn, as Rachel mentioned, in the books. He is the big bad of the books. He's kind of the Sauron, and the Horn King is his general in book 1, who's the villain of book 1.
Yeah.
And people have theorized that Arawn is, in the opening credits of the movie, they talk about this king that is like so evil and so powerful, even the gods feared him. And then they like threw him in molten iron and trapped him in the Cauldron. And he could never be destroyed, but he's trapped in the Cauldron. And a lot of people are like, oh, maybe that's Arawn in this version of the Prydain of the Lord Alexander books.
So we're taking that and running with it.
Yes. That's not us, that's the wiki.
Yes.
So, we are imagining the Horn King was a general of the evil wizard king Arawn. Arawn was defeated somehow by heroes, by gods, by some combination of them, and cast into the Cauldron. The Horn King is still there, and his motivation now, like, he takes over, he sort of takes control of the army of darkness. You know, if Sauron were defeated, then King of the Lord of the Nazgul might have taken over, if he had not been stabbed. And specifically, this we're trying to get some of that, like, motivation, psychological complexity. He resented Arawn wasting his soldiers' lives. Like, he cared, he had felt real responsibility and obligation to the armies of darkness, to the ranks of the infernal abyss, to the marching orcs of Mordor.
Yes.
And Arawn, being your classic Sauron type, did not.
Yes.
And the Horn King resented that.
And the thing that made us settle on this backstory, because it's not supported anywhere except when he's raising the Cauldron board, he refers to them as my beloved warriors.
Yes.
And beloved is such an interesting and evocative word choice.
Yes. Or even the whole that he's in the room of corpses and he's like talking to them.
Yeah.
Like, did he feel some kind of relationship, some kind of connection to these skeletons, to a big pile of skeletons?
Yes.
So my beloved, we're making a lot of hay out of my beloved warriors.
You're going to be hearing that line again
when we
get to role-playing trade, ideal bond and flaw.
So he decided, this is giving us, we're jumping a little bit to that tragedy relatability, that he would rule better, that he could succeed where Arawn had failed, and that he would be the new Dark Lord, but that he would be different. He would be a kinder, gentler, more sustainable Dark Lord.
And like, not even for just like the regular people who cares about them, but specifically for his soldiers.
Yes.
Like, he is going to be the Dark Lord who has seen the horrors of war firsthand and knows that once he rules, he's going to have a kingdom of peace so that this war is never visited on anyone again.
Classic warring for peace, destroying the village to save it kind of deal.
He loves peace so much he'll fight for it.
So we are all circling around that act of ultimate darkness because we have to have one for this story, for this Dark Lord format. We're imagining that he started these wars of conquest again, sort of in the name of peace, in the name of honoring the soldiers whose lives were wasted. He wasted more lives. And he even did this attack that he knew would be a slaughter. And he failed. He thought he would succeed. All of his soldiers were butchered, and he died too. But
it was like he knew it was a huge risk.
Yeah,
and
huge
he's like,
gamble.
it was a huge gamble, but he's like, but if I win, then we're gonna win this war, and it's all gonna be worth it. Sunk cost fallacy is a hell of a drug, as we always say on this podcast.
So we another one of those tragedy relatability things. And he died,
along with all his men.
The dark powers, that pouring out his men's lives, being just as bad, if not worse, as Arawn in this battle. That was his act of ultimate darkness. And the dark powers then raised him as an undead. Because the Horn King, I mean, they never say it in the movie, but that guy's gotta be undead. I mean, look at his clothes. He's wearing such undead clothes. Wearing such a lich clothes.
He's wearing very lich clothes.
We're not doing a lich, little jumping ahead. We're imagining him as a revenant, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But that he was raised as undead, and he is still this powerful warlord, and that's the act of ultimate darkness that brings him into Ravenloft. So long walk to our act of ultimate darkness. But then he is this powerful warlord who's still trying to wage a war conquest in this land. And the ways going about it brings us our torment, or got what they wanted, lost what they had, Prince of the Land of Stench.
Yes.
We've really developed a whole little vocabulary over the course of the many, many years of this podcast. This is the one where maybe when you were listening to Rachel go through them, you were like, oh, Black Cauldron.
Yes.
So yes. In the simplest level, he wants to get the Black Cauldron. He's never going to have access to it. Or if he gets it, it's going to be away. It's going to be taken from him. He's never going to permanently or long-term have it. And it's not just in the movie. It's very much clearly he wants the Black Cauldron to make the Cauldron born to rule. Because that'll be like the ultimate army.
Yeah.
That's the MacGuffin that'll let him take over the world. But this backstory we're bringing in, yes, he wants to have the Cauldron born to rule over this world, but he also is desperate to revive his warriors. And he sees this as a kind of atoning for failing them, atoning for all of his mistakes.
There's the atoning for failing them. There's he's the one who got them killed, so he owes it to them to bring them back. And there's also just this was when he felt general camaraderie with his men. This is when they were brothers in arms. They were going he loved them, they were all in this together. And you see, he does not have that with his current. So it's this whole, wonderful curse of the chasing nostalgia. Of the chasing the memory of your, old friends who were perfect and would have bought you a pony.
And that his current army, we see this in the movie, they're just thugs, they're greedy, they're gluttonous, they're drunkards, they're stupid, they're just sort of the, gutter scrapings of this land that have been enrolled in his army for power and loot. And
greatest torment is Creeper.
Yes, is the little annoying henchman. And
guys, I'm not a massive fan of this movie. I'm not going to slag it because I know it has a lot of fans. It's a very devoted fan base. I respect that. I see why you love it. I'm not going to slag it. Except Creeper, guys. Come on.
He's really he's a lot,
Animation is gorgeous. Horned King is amazing. Music is great. I so spooky. I see why you love it.
Yes.
I understand. Creeper.
And for those massive fans, I'm just going to say something you're going to understand. Jeffrey Katzenberg didn't make Creeper. Right? That's every cut of this movie has Creeper in it.
Yeah.
Maybe creeper works for you. Hit us up in the comments if you have a defensive creeper.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he despises his current army, and, we kind of see this with, some of that deleted footage, the Cauldron born kill his current soldiers so he can raise them as Cauldron born.
Kill them horribly.
Yeah, buddy. And he'll never have that kind of atonement. He'll never have that bringing them back. Or maybe he'll do a little bit. He'll get a taste of it. The Dark Powers will get you have a little taste of it. That makes it more fun. That keeps you running.
Oh, yeah. They don't want to soft on their hands.
Yeah, so he'll occasionally get hold of the Cauldron, like in the movie, and be able to raise like a couple Cauldron born, but something will happen and it'll be lost.
Yeah.
And I love the detail that we'll come back to this again. This is, there's not like a ton of backstory to work with, but I do love the detail that he's having his men rob graves. He's having them dig into barrow mounds and graves and dig up the skeletons, the bodies of great warriors to bring them back as Cauldron born. I love we have that like wagon coming in loaded with skeletons. And we have just rooms full of skeletons waiting for the Cauldron. That's so cool.
Oh man, what if we're continuing this kind of like he sees himself as a sort of man of the people thing? Like, what if he's specifically like looking for the graves of people who are somehow wronged in life? And like, this is just like a
that's good.
Yeah.
But that like he's not even, it's not enough that he wasted their lives for conquest, but that he's even desecrating their graves and denying them their eternal rest.
Yeah.
Like, you could say he is worse than Arawn. Then we have, we kind of circled some of this we mentioned, with our backstory and our motivation we're giving him, we have our element of tragedy and relatability. That's over to you.
Oh my god, okay.
You called shotgun on this one.
I did call dibs on element of tragedy and relatability. Okay, so first off, there's the like, we haven't talked about this a whole lot, but we did, when we were going over this, we talked about the like, Arawn's soul being in the Cauldron. And he's going to use the Cauldron to make a better kingdom than Arawn's, and it's going to be so much cooler, and Arawn's soul is just going to be stuck there helping him make it happen.
Nice.
Like, come on, guys. That's great. That's great.
great
And we can all feel that
great
in our
pettiness,
hearts.
yes.
Great. We all feel that pettiness. But even more than that, and this is why I called shotgun on this, because, like, I have mentioned a couple times on the podcast I'm an army brat. And any of you out there who have any military connection at all, if you are current or former military, if you're a military brat, like anything along those lines, I don't have to sell you on this. Just that this is the guy who does not care about soldiers' lives, who sees soldiers as disposable, who sends them in to die over and over and over and over again, and you have the chance to fix that, and you have the chance to bring them back and save all those lives that were squandered. Wouldn't you do anything for that?
Yes.
If the specific military thing, like if you get that on an intellectual level, but it doesn't hit you where you live, Arawn is the guy who sees you as a number on a spreadsheet. Arawn is the guy running the insurance company who denies your claim. Arawn is the bureaucrat passing laws who has decided that, you know what, your voting bloc doesn't get him enough votes, and that voting bloc does, so he's gonna mess up your life to win those votes. Arawn is the worst. I am going to go and join the Horned King's revolution right now. Like, Horned King, hear me. When I die, raise me up in the cauldron. Don't give me my eternal rest. I'm in, man. I'm in.
But of course, classic Darklord, just perpetuating everything.
Yes,
he's just becoming the very thing he was claiming to be fighting against, and is just perpetuating the evils that he claims to be trying to correct.
He is not, in fact, Robin Hood. He is meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
So, I deeply hope we have done a decent job of selling you on the idea of a sort of psychological complexity backstory for the Horned King. Then we have our final element, the domain reflecting the Darklord's personality or curse. And this is one where there's like magic, evil, woo, but there's a lot you can bring in from the books.
Yes. Because with the books, we get Prydain much more fleshed out. In the movie, it's just kind of like this Caer Dallben, and the Marshes of Morva, and the
castle.
The castle, yeah.
That's it, yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much all we get. In the books, there's like, we actually get kind of the system of government and like the people who were involved, and it actually works beautifully for the domain reflecting the Dark Lord. Because there is, in the Black Cauldron book, there's this like general who's this kind of Boromir-like figure who's all, I'm going to take the Black Cauldron and I'm going to use it, and I'll be able to use it for good and like have this army of undead and be able to start my amazing reign of perfection and awesome. It's kind of like what we're doing with the Horned King. And the idea that this is just like what's going on in Prydain in general, that there are these people like this. That like you have the High King, whose name is Gwydion, and I'm just going to refer to him as the High King because
it's too weird for Ravenloft.
Yeah, when we talk about Gwydion, we always mean a guy with tentacles living in the Shadow Rift. Yeah. So we have the High King, and you have like his kind of the lords who are serving under him, very feudal, and the idea that they're constantly bickering, constantly backstabbing, constantly trying to climb to the top, much in the same way that the Horned King, wants to overthrow Arawn and everything. And also, in the novel, because the Cauldron-born were much more powerful than your average zombies, the Black Cauldron was this kind of like One Ring equivalent. It was one of the most powerful magic items in the land. So the idea that everyone also is fighting each other for the Black Cauldron. Right. This is the ultimate MacGuffin that they'll be able to use to kill and usurp the High King. Much of the way that the Horned King wishes that he had killed Arawn in order to usurp him instead of letting somebody else do it. And that gives us that great domain reflecting the Dark Lord. We also even, like, on a smaller scale, for the people who aren't, like, full trying to lead coups or whatever, in Terran Wanderer, the fourth book, we even see that, like, they're constantly fighting with each other. You've got, like, these neighboring barons who are all, like, kind of like what we're talking about with Grave. That they even have that there's the cow that they're constantly stealing back and forth, and no one even remembers who it originally belonged to. So just that whole idea of the constant strife, the constant betrayal, just, yeah.
So, we have reached deep down into our souls. We have used all of our courage, all of our fortitude, all of our years of training in this field to try and give you those 4 elements of a good Dark Lord, that psychological complexity, that backstory, that motivation for the Horned King. If you have a better suggestion, please hit us up, but we did our best, darn it.
We were struggling, but then we had this montage of 38 episodes. Liu Shang led us through and taught us how to climb to get the arrow.
Man, we montaged.
Yes.
So now let's talk about something much, much, much simpler to do, which is how we're going to represent the Horned King as a kind of Ravenloft NPC. Now, in Vanderton's Guide to Ravenloft, they always have stats similar to A, and then something from the Monster Manual. And we picked Revenant. And this is, for those of you who don't know the Monster Manual that well, it's type of undead. Like, the Horned King has to be undead.
Yes.
Like, I mean, look at this guy. He's wearing such evil clothes. And
like, his face isn't technically a skull, but like,
enough.
I mean, because it turns into a skull at the end. So, but
skeleton. Yeah. I mean, look at this guy.
Look at this guy.
And Revenant is specifically the Crow from the movie The Crow. The idea that, like, they're very physically powerful, they're a powerful warrior, and that they kind of came back to life for revenge. That they sort of, like, were wronged in some deep and profound way, that they crawled out of the grave. They're too angry to die.
Yes.
For those of you who listened to our Mulan, Peddler's Tale, Shan Yu, which not enough of you did, so please get on that if you haven't yet.
It's metaplot important.
We also picked Revenant for Shan Yu.
Yes.
The idea is, our whole idea is when they crawled out of the snow, they actually were rising as undead.
Yes.
And he was just too mad to die. And our version of the Horned King is also too mad to die.
And we went with Revenant rather than Lich because even though he looked so much like a Lich, like he's got the robes and everything.
Yeah, wizardy looking.
But he never uses magic.
Right.
Like, he does the, like, cool appearing in the gust of wind and everything,
right.
But, like, he never actually uses magic.
I mean, Batman can do that. He's not magic.
Exactly. And, everything is very just, like, leading warriors and very martial.
Right.
And so
having
that
minions
was,
So, in terms of specific powers as Darklord, beyond those stat blocks of a Revenant, we have, in the book, he specifically has a fear aura power. And while they never say that explicitly in the movie, it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Like, in that really amazingly well-animated him appearing in the feasting hall, everybody's cowering and cringing away from him. And so, fear aura, very obvious power to give him. Speaking of, that's that really well-animated scene in the feasting hall with his thugs. We do imagine he is, as Rachel said, a lot of his power just comes from being a military commander, from having an army of thugs that is terrified of him and does whatever he asks. But in the books, those army of thugs have a really cool power that we're bringing over.
Yes, this isn't in the movie at all, but it's so cool we had to use it. Because in the books, he divides them into units. And he calls them his huntsmen. And let's say there's 12 huntsmen in a unit. Every time you kill one, that one's power gets divided up among the remaining huntsmen. So you can start killing your way through them, and they're like, CR2, and it's fine. But then you kill one, and they're all CR3. And then you kill another one, and they're all CR4.
So good. And oh, man, what a good fight.
The last one's the friggin' Hulk.
Yes.
So once you figure out this is going on, you have to figure out how to disable them without killing them. It's going to be such a good fight.
Like, you start using the thug stat block, but by the time there's one left, you're using, like, the gladiator or veteran stat block. And everyone's like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And this is one of those we've mentioned a couple times. This is a fight that's also a puzzle. And they're watching, and you give them clues that this is what's happening. And maybe some kind of glowing gems. Glowing gems are always a good...
Oh, you can totally have, like, it falls and there's, like, glowing mist.
Right.
And, the other huntsmen inhale it, like, Bellows eating a palisman style.
And they get, like, bigger. Yeah. They get, like, bigger and bulkier, like Bane. And so they figure it out, and then they realize, okay, we need to be knocking them unconscious. Yeah. If we knock them unconscious, it's fine. They're still just CR1/2 thugs the whole time. And they're going to feel so proud of themselves for figuring it out and for figuring out the strategy and for kind of cracking the puzzle.
Yeah.
And so love that. Speaking of minions, of course, we have to have the Cauldron born.
Of course.
We have to have the Cauldron born. And as we mentioned, we are imagining it's not that he's never had the Cauldron or never ever will for 1 second have the Cauldron, but that he has gotten it in the past, but then lost it.
That's what was going on in the books, and it's just that's more fruitful from a gaming perspective, because you want him to have his army of undead minions, like whether or not the PCs succeed in preventing him from getting the Cauldron. So you want there to be the undead minions there. That means he has to have had it in the past.
Yes. You have to have Cauldron born.
You have to have Cauldron born.
So you have to have had in the past. So we are imagining, you can... we'll touch on this later. One of the issues here is that the Cauldron born are just a little less impressive in a D&D setting.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you can make undead! Boom, boom, boom! Like, that's... Every third villain we fight does that exact thing.
Like, we just did Curse of Strahd.
Yeah. So we are imagining they are a kind of unique undead. You're basically using the stat blocks of, like, a skeleton, but that they have immunity to non-magical damage. Because if I read what Rachel's told me, that's how it is in the books.
Yeah. That if they had fight scenes in the movie with the Cauldron born, then Terran would have been the only one who was able to hurt them because he had a magic sword.
But yeah, exactly. So that what makes them so horrible, they're basically like tougher skeletons. Maybe the ghoul stat block without the paralysis, they make them a little bit tougher. But they're undead, and that's hard enough. But specifically, they're immune to non-magical damage. If you just hit them with a regular sword, they just completely shrug it off, not taking half damage.
So for any average, village that they're attacking, they're just dead. They're just dead.
Speaking of his magical minions, it's worth mentioning he also has the Gwithaint, who are those cool, little weird dragon guys that he can send them to spy. He can give them instructions. He can tell them steal an oracular pig. He can tell them follow the heroes and find them when they get the Black Cauldron. You can never go wrong with an evil villain that has, weird bird monsters that can be spies. And that are big enough to swoop down and grab things and carry them away, like oracular pigs.
So great.
And then finally, the power that all Darklords have, the closing the borders, the trapping our heroes in this sort of equivalent of the land of Prydain.
You can't just grab the Cauldron and run to another domain.
To another domain. we are imagining pretty straightforwardly. It's a kind of green mist and it's full of undead. Right? There's not a lot more to do with that.
No.
There's mist, there's green, it's undead. It's green, it's a cool, really cool visual effect. And if you go into the mist, you'll just be swarmed by undead.
Yes.
There you go. What do you want? They can't all be weird, elaborate time loops. And then finally, in the Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, we have for each of those Dark Lords the role-playing trait, ideal, bond, and flaw. They do these in the form of quotes. As much as possible, we like to do these as quotes that the character has done.
We couldn't last month because it was more due, and his quotes are...
So, we have a couple of quotes here. Not a lot. Like, he actually, like a couple of our Dark Lords, he is a man of action, less so of words. Like, you probably remember him having a lot more dialogue than he actually does. And believe me, I know how much dialogue he has, because I've been diligently searching for quotes.
I'm looking at your Google Doc, and we're already better than Callahan.
Yeah, no, we're better than Callahan. Yeah, our Callahan from Big Hero 6 is our reigning champion.
Well, he was until Mordew.
Until Mordew, yes. Our reigning champion of guy who says words. Mordew kind of gets an asterisk because he's a bear.
That's true. Yeah, Callahan, guy who has a dialogue that is not helpful for trait, ideal, bond, and flaw.
So, we do, however, have a couple of big speeches. And there's maybe like 5, 6 of these bigger speeches. And I really feel like with some of our other Dark Lords, it's going to be kind of slider puzzling like 5 or 6 quotes into these like 4 categories and just figure out what's best for those. So, this is that scene in the beginning, and it is another one where it's him talking room of skeletons, and it was supposed to be later in the movie, but Jeffrey Katzenberg wanted to introduce the villain earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes, my soldiers. Soon the Black Cauldron will be mine. Its evil power will course through my veins, and I shall make you cauldron-born. Yes, oh yes, then you will worship me. Oh, my soldiers. How long have I thirsted to be a god among mortal men? He's wearing such evil clothes.
He's wearing such evil clothes.
But you do have, for our fanfic backstory, that he's just talking, oh, my soldiers.
Oh, my soldiers, how long have I thirsted to be a god among mortal men? Feels like an ideal.
Yes, I love that very much.
Even
oh, my soldiers.
Oh, my soldiers, yeah. And then even the wanting to be a god, that is a very vague, be a god. But, our version of him, it's the,
right.
But he can be a just god. He wants to be a god because he'll be a god who does it right.
So, this was in all the, wikis referencing this. Such a brave and handsome crew. A pig boy, a scullery maid, and a broken-down minstrel. Perhaps it may interest you to see what fate has in store for you. Laughs and lifts up a skeleton. Now I call on my army of the dead, the Cauldron-born, lowers the skeleton into the Black Cauldron. Arise, my messengers of death, our time has arrived.
My such a brave and handsome crew, a pig boy, a scullery maid, and a broken-down minstrel. That's a good potential for a trait.
Yeah.
We'll
because that's being very contemptuous and sarcastic.
Mm-hmm.
And what's that? The quote we have to include, I think pretty clearly... My beloved warriors have come to life, all the dead of centuries past. Never has anyone created an army like this. Go forth, my deathless warriors, destroy all in your path.
I think if we cut destroy all in your path, we've got a bond, yeah.
Go forth, my deathless warriors. Because 70% of our take on this guy circles the line, my beloved warriors.
The half line, there's no verb there.
Yeah.
A possessive pronoun, an adjective, and a noun.
Okay, so now...
I'm sorry, I'm just looking at his ridiculous
Skeletor dialogue. You've interfered for the last time. Now, pig keeper, you shall die.
This is some this ends now level nonsense.
Yeah. No, you do not escape. You will satisfy the cauldron's hunger. No, you do not have me. My power cannot die. Curse you. No. That's... As he's
I guess that's the flaw. My power cannot die.
Curse you. No. And people have pointed out that when he's saying curse you, he's talking to the cauldron, which is more evidence for the Arawn and the cauldron. Yeah,
I like that.
More evidence. So I that makes it even better as a flaw. That it's bringing in this sort of Arawn relationship we're imagining.
all this is him being mad at Arawn. Yeah, I like it. Okay.
So, Callahan...
We did it very quickly,
adjacent,
actually.
because there weren't many slider puzzles, so slider puzzle. Callahan adjacent, but much easier and better than Callahan, because he is such a grandiose Skeletor-esque supervillain. So that wraps up our discussion of the thing you are really all here for. Please keep listening. The Horned King.
We're about to talk about oracular pigs, guys. You know you want to hear about oracular pigs. Stick with us.
And now let's talk about the land that he is trying to conquer with his beloved army of deathless warriors. Let's talk about this land that I loved it. We'll probably call Prydain in this discussion.
Yes.
But I'm certainly not calling Prydain in the write-up, even though I should be able to, because it's an old word for whales.
Is it?
I thought so, yeah.
Okay, I don't think it was.
Oh, okay, never mind that. Then I absolutely can't.
No.
But even if it were an old word for whales, that would be kind of theoretically public domain. That's flying a little too close to the copyright sign. Let's talk about the land of Prydain in a section we like to call...
The Land. The Land. Prydain operates under a feudal system, with a high king and several vassal lords who govern their lands, called cantrevs, with a sizable amount of freedom, often having vassal lords of their own. The cantrev lords often refer to themselves as kings as well, although they owe allegiance to the High King. I can almost hear my patron rolling his eyes in monarchical contempt at the idea that anyone calling himself a king would be willing to swear fealty to a liege lord. I can assure you that if this is the case, such skepticism is well-founded. While some of these cantrev lords are steadfast, most dream of becoming the High King or Queen themselves. As each is able to muster a personal army from their cantrevs, it is frankly a miracle that the Horned King has anything left to attempt to conquer. I suspect that the only reason the kingdom has not become engulfed in civil war is that the cantrev lords' vassals are as disloyal as their masters, transforming those personal armies into a hotbed of warring factions. Although the Horned King's thirst for rulership of Prydain would make him unremarkable among the cantrev lords, he is not part of the kingdom's feudal system. His realm, Anuvin, is politically a border realm of Prydain, even though they seem to be a single domain in the more metaphysical sense. Anuvin, which is dramatically called the Land of Death by its citizens and those of Prydain alike, is a desolate mountain waste, rife with necrotic energy that makes it inhospitable to living things. Small wonder that the Horned King's huntsmen raid Prydain's farms for sustenance. It is difficult to imagine anything growing in Anuvin save the blighted trees of the Forbidden Forest. Twisted creatures called gwithaints, an uncanny blend of ravens and wyverns, hunt the skies for any prey that is able to survive in Anuvin. Rumor has it that they serve as the Horned King's eyes, although, if so, I managed to evade their detection. Other than the Horned King, the main individual who seems to exist outside the feudal system is the wizard Dalbin, although for entirely different reasons. I suppose that Dalbin could be considered a cantrev lord with no vassals, answering directly to the High King, but his cantrev consists of a single farm, protected by powerful abjuration magic. I believe I experienced the benefits of this magic firsthand when I spent the night there. I do not know whether I attempted to walk in my sleep. I tied my foot to the post of every bed I used in Prydain and found the knots secure upon waking, so if I did sleepwalk, there or anywhere else, it was literally on a short leash. I do know, however, that at Caer Dallben my sleep was untroubled by nightmares for the first time in months. On the subject of those nightmares, I have considered my patron's offer of something that will remove the need for sleep, and it is tempting. Even putting aside the sleepwalking, the dreams alone, I'm no stranger to nightmares, but these... Apologies, I digress. I am concerned about side effects. If this is, in fact, a result of stress, then losing the ability to sleep hardly seems conducive to relieving that stress, and I wonder how else it might manifest. And if there is some other cause, removing the need for sleep seems like treating a symptom rather than the underlying disease. I don't know why this is... I thank you for the offer, truly, but it seems imprudent. For the time being, I shall carry on as I have. At any rate, returning to the subject of Prydain. Although Dalbin was cordial during my stay, he was not terribly forthcoming, and I had the sense that he was deliberately keeping me at arm's length. His ward, a young man named Taryn, was decidedly less reserved, particularly when he learned about the scope of my travels. He longed for a life of adventure himself, and he soon began to tell me of the magical properties of Caer Dalbin in the hopes of impressing me enough that I would bring him along when I left. He claimed that the Book of Three, Dalbin's magical tome, told the past, present, and future of Prydain, although anyone who attempted to touch it other than Dalbin himself would suffer agonizing pain, particularly if their intentions were malicious. If Taryn was to be believed, however, there was an even stranger magical presence in Caer Dalbin. Henwen, the oracular pig. Apparently, Henwen's powers of divination were so great that she could even uncover the true names of magical beings. I thought at first that Taryn had come up with a particularly ludicrous attempt to capture my interest, but he had hardly begun speaking when Dalbin appeared with a stern expression, reprimanded Taryn, and informed me politely but firmly that it was time for me to be on my way. Whether or not Henwen is truly a seer to rival the Vistani, there is some secret about her that Dalbin wishes to protect.
So the non-Prydain, just to avoid that potential legal can of worms, that name that I'm going to be using in the write-up is Anuin.
I think that's how it's pronounced. I don't know. As we established last episode, I'm Scottish, not Welsh.
But that is, Rachel informs me, the name of the kind of underworld in the books where Arawn comes, is the lord of, right?
It's Mordor, yeah.
Yeah,
Anuin is Mordor, and, it's also the name of the Welsh underworld, actually. So, you can't copyright the name of the Welsh underworld.
Nope, you cannot, so take that.
It's like Tartarus.
Lloyd Alexander. So, we have mentioned previously, while the movie does give us this amazing villain that has had staying power, that's stuck in people's minds and imaginations, these many decades, the overall setting is less so.
Yeah.
I think if I found someone that was I love the Black Cauldron, it's one of my favorite, 80s Disney movies. And I was tell me 3 things about them. None of them are going to be about the land of Prydain.
No, it's going to be the Horned King, the Cauldron Born, and the animation. Or maybe the music. And
there are specific, cool and atmospheric and evocative, sub-locations. If any location comes out, they probably have much to say about the Horned King's castle, which we will be talking about later.
Or even the marshes of Morva.
But that overall land that this is set in is, the most generic of fantasy kingdoms. Yes. So if you use this, you are going to have to do a lot of the sort of kingdom building as a D&D setting on your own. Once again, not a knock on the movie. It was not trying to be a D&D kingdom setting. But you do at least have the nice thing of you can bring in Welsh mythology and geography. And it's we've touched on with the Harz Mountains with Snow White, with Los Angeles with Who Framed Roger Rabbit. If you have a real world thing to draw on that is 1/2 to 2/3 of the work already done.
There's a specific Welsh mythology book. I wish that every Gaelic and Celtic culture had one of these. It's called the Mabinogion or something like that.
Wales.
But it's the big collection. It's the big collection of a whole bunch of Welsh fairy tales and folklore and stuff, and you read it and you're oh, that's where Lord Alexander God is everything.
Yeah. I'm sure Lord Alexander would happily cop having God is everything. Or even you could just look up maps of kind of medieval Dark Ages Wales and draw stuff from there. But we do, that's, you have to do a lot of work if you're just taking the movie. But the books, a refrain we come back to, if you bring in the books, that does give you a lot more to build on.
Yeah, you've got like we mentioned, we were talking about the domain reflecting the Dark Lord. You've got the High King, you've got the Lesser Lords. It's very feudal. The Lords rule their own territories, and so they're always scheming and bickering against each other. And you've kind of got sort of with Brave, instead of being inter-clan warfare, it's these, fiefdoms who are at war with each other. And you can maybe even include that there's a civil war and the Horned King is egging it on because he wants to go all Game of Thrones. The Seven Kingdoms are at war with each other, so the army
will sweep in. Yeah. And there's none of this in the movie. But there is a reference, and we've pretty exhaustively looked over for any kind of world-building stuff. But at the very beginning, Taryn says something like, the war, like, he's worried the war will be over before he gets to, like, fight it and be a hero. Mm-hmm. So that tells you Taran's aware of this thing called the war, the strong suggestions, and he goes out and, like, does fake sword fighting and say he's beating the Horn King, so that he's aware of some kind of, like, wider war against the Horn King.
Yeah.
So we never see it in the movie, because we see, like, 6 characters in that whole thing, but the idea there is this wider war of presumably non-skeleton-y kingdoms that are fighting against the Horn King. So you have something then you could bring in all that stuff from the books and kind of bolt that onto a movie focus. However, there are a couple of places, we've gone over most of them already, that are worth mentioning, that worth having as a setting. We have basically 4 locations other than the forest. And we're going to give you a little thing of each of those, because each of those might have some potential for your own Black Cauldron-inspired adventure. And the first of those is where those early scenes happen, where Taran is dreaming of martial glory and sword fighting geese or whatever with a stick. And that is, let's call it Caer Dallben. I think I'm okay using a lot of these locations because I think a lot of them are just like Welsh words. Like, I know Caer is just castle.
Yeah.
And Caer Dallben is where it opens. Dallben is kind of the mentor character. And this makes a wonderful home base.
Yes.
Like, just like in the movie, this for your PCs can be the home base.
Yeah. And, like, in the book, you had the whole, like, that Dallben was this really powerful wizard, but now he's kind of retired. He's kind of like in a Yoda on Dagobah kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your PCs arrive there. This is kind of like the safe, peaceful place. They can, like, this could be their, they can come back to, they can protect, they can rest. Dallben, as we mentioned, in the movie, we get that he knows a lot of what's going on. He, is a very Yoda-like figure, so he could be, I guess, a good source of exposition, a good mentor for potential PCs, and wonderfully, Caer Dallben also gives us a chance to have your PCs interact with Henwin.
Yes! Because who doesn't want to interact with an oracular pig?
It's my second favorite part of the movie after the Horned King. Oracular pig.
Gosh.
It just rolls off the tongue so well.
Great.
Oracular
and she's so cute. She's so cute.
And just, she's cute, and she's lovable, and Taran feels responsible for her, and we'll dig into this a little later when we talk about how these stories might go, but I think this is a great, like, just like in the books, in the movie, this is a really unique setting element. It's a really unique setting element to make this not just an adventure in a generic fantasy kingdom.
Yeah.
Then we have the aforementioned Marshes of Morva.
So the Marshes of Morva is a spooky, cursed place. The 3 witches live there. They're pretty cool. The 3 witches are one area. Again, I know comparing the movie to the books is a touchy subject for movie fans. Go ahead and at me when it comes to the witches. If you prefer the movie witches, let me know why. I am curious. I really strongly prefer the book witches because the movie witches are overtly sinister. And I think with the book witches, you get this very cool, they're neutral and alien and inhuman, and that's where all of their bad is coming from. And I really feel like if you want to, like, have them be more fey and less, like, cacklingly evil, then reading the book The Black Cauldron is a great way to go. So, like, both, they trade, they bargain, they're not on anyone's side, they're on their own side. Classic fae. Absolutely classic fae. In the movie, they're more sinister, they want to turn everybody into frogs to eat them. But in the book, I kind of had them on my mind when I was writing The Witch in the Dee's Journal for Brave last episode. Because it's like, no, they don't want to turn them into frogs to eat them. They want to turn them into frogs because why wouldn't you want to be a frog? Right, frogs have no worries. They just get to, hop around and be happy.
Various comics on Facebook shared to that effect of, I wouldn't mind being turned into a frog.
Yes, exactly.
Have to hop around on a lily pad and eat flies.
It's the green, it's the green I need.
Pay bills.
Yeah. And the whole, like, oh, maybe we should turn them into ducks. We haven't turned anyone into ducks for a while, and ducks also have no worries. And a really cool thing with them, so cool. I love this.
When Rachel told me.
Is, so the 3 hags have 3 different personalities. There is one the one who's the kind of, like, flirty, open one. Yeah, she, like, isn't stuffing flute or flam down her shirt or whatever, but she's kind of the more flirty one. There's the kind of, like, crotchety older one, and then there's the other one, Courage Not Enough. Like, in both, like, I could not tell you what the personality of the 3rd hag is. They keep being like, oh yeah, well, oh, look at her, she's in a terrible mood because she's had to be Orla 3 times in a row, and no one likes being Orla. Well, you'd be in a bad mood too if you had to be Orla. You've gotten to be Ordu 5 times now.
Wow.
Like, what is going on?
Like, what do you mean you got to be Ordu 5 times in a row, or you had to be Orla, and like, are these just like identities that they put on like clothes, and they're like arguing over who gets the nice hat, and being Ordu is the nice hat, and somehow you got it, and Orla's the bad hat. She's like, that's so weird.
That's so weird and creepy, and I love it.
Yeah, so this is a way, it's kind of a stock encounter, but I love them, as you mentioned, as these neutral. They're not on the Horned King's side, they're not on your side, they're just doing their own thing, they're very alien, they can help you, they can harm you, and especially that whole weird switching personalities, identities thing is going to make the encounter with them really memorable.
Yeah, and who even knows what they want these magic items for? And then there's the Fairfolk Cave, and...
we have to say...
We've watched this movie twice, and both times I fell asleep.
Once they get, like they first get out of the Horned King Castle, the air kind of goes out of the tires for a stretch of the movie.
And then they get to the marshes, and it picks up again.
Yeah,
it's like that stretch in between, it's like, oh my gosh, what is even happening? It's fairies, they're in a mound, just like fairy mythology stuff. Like, there is some potential neat folktale stuff, you're gonna have to bring that. And I will say, this is not the movie's fault. Actually, I'm not slagging on the movie here, because I reread the books for the episode, and I was like, oh yeah, Taryn, oh yeah, Gertrude, Fluterflam, I love all these characters, and then Dolly the fairy shows up, and I was like, who?
Mm-hmm.
I guess he's only in the first book, because I don't remember him at all. No, he's in more of the books than Elanwi is. She isn't in the fourth one. He's in all of them, and I did not remember he existed. So the movie comes by this honestly. The fairies in Prydain are not great. So again, you could bring in some cool Welsh fairy tale folklore stuff, but you're going to have to bring it yourself. And there is one neat thing from the books you could bring in, which is that the Fae, they are powerful, they can help you if you win them over, but the Horned King's land has a hostile energy that will slowly kill them unless they're invisible, because when they're invisible, they go into the border ethereal in D&D terms. So, like, until you kind of figure out that hack that, oh, no, it's like they're getting these levels of exhaustion, but when they turn invisible, that stops the process. That could be an interesting way to kind of have that Fae assistance get nerfed. Yeah,
or it's a nice, like, we hate the Horned King, we want to help you, but we can only give you the littlest bit of assistance. Is just his castle has this necrotic energy that hurts us and kills us. Speaking of his castle, much like the Horned King himself, the reason we are all here, the sort of coolest setting that we are in the longest of any of the places of the movie, and that is the Horned King's Castle. And right after Horned King's Castle - the best.
Yes.
Like, if you are running a Black Cauldron Prydain game, especially one where you're more drawing from the movie, and you're using, like, the movie Horned King, you have to have this castle. It is a dungeon. It is a dungeon. It is a dungeon. It has literal dungeons that the characters are put in, but the whole thing is a Dungeons and Dragons dungeons. It has monsters. It has secret tunnels. It has probably traps. I can't remember, but I'm certain there are traps in there somewhere.
I'm sure there have to be traps.
It has treasure. Like, Taryn finds a crumbling wall, an old burial chamber with a magic sword. And he has his +1 sword now.
There's even a thing in the books where, like, Arawn goes around and, like, steals and hoards magic items that he has no need for, because he's like, well, this way no one's ever going to use them against me. So, like, you could just have, what does the Horned King need with, like, something that helps you grow crops faster? I don't know, but now you don't have it.
Or there's a deleted scene where Elanwi is like, oh, Taryn, be very careful, so stuff here might be cursed. So, like, it is that whole, when they first escape, and they're going through, and he gets the sword, and all that, this is one of just the most Dungeons and Dragons sequences in any Disney movie ever. Because a group of fantasy adventurers are going through a subterranean, like, castle, and finding a magic sword, and then fighting the guards and the weird monsters. And so just, this is everything you could want. You have to have a scene here. You have to, like, this is perfect for your party. For them, all of the things on their character sheet are, like, designed to navigate this environment. So, I love the Horned King's Castle. We have a full-bore D&D style dungeon in the movie, and thus in your game. Okay. Not a lot, as we mentioned, world building. This is a pretty short, the land section.
Yeah.
But we think that those basic building blocks are enough that you could get a very strong spooky D&D/Ravenloft adventure from them. But let's talk about what that adventure might look like. Rachel, what do you do with it?
Dread possibilities. I did not want to leave Prydain without a more thorough examination of the Horned King's castle. As ominous as it looked from the outside, the lackluster talents of the huntsman made it relatively easy to infiltrate. I used Mask of Many Faces to look like a muscle-bound, bearded lout and acted too drunk to stand, and within an hour, half of them were swearing they had known me for years. As mentioned, I was also able to steal away to the Hall of Warriors. Although the locks were excellent, the protections against, say, an intruder assuming gaseous form and gliding through a keyhole were minimal, further confirming my hypothesis that the Horned King was no spellcaster. The catacombs were scarcely secured at all, but the bodies had no grave goods beyond weapons and armor. I suspect anything else of value was plundered, but the arms were left behind for the corpses to use upon their reanimation. As I explored beneath the castle, I heard voices shouting in familiar accents, and I fought the urge to roll my eyes. Agrabanians. Again. I crept through the corridors toward the sound and found myself outside a sturdy door with a small barred window. Whatever the Agrabanians had done, they had gotten themselves thrown into the Horned King's dungeon. I peered through the window to see two men bickering, each assigning blame to the other for their capture, while a young woman examined the walls in an apparent quest for secret doors. I dropped below the level of the window to eavesdrop for a while, and it soon became clear that they had come at the behest of a man named Jafar, whose name I recall hearing from my patron, in the hopes of finding the cauldron for themselves. This perplexed me. As far as I know, necromancy was uncommon in Agrabah, although I suppose that would explain why this Jafar had to seek it out in other realms. My patron will be unsurprised to hear that my curiosity soon got the better of me. Agrabanians have been crossing my path for the better part of a year, and I could not help but wonder why. I stood, allowing them to see me through the window, and told them that I would be happy to free them from the Horned King's dungeon, if they told me more about why they were seeking the cauldron in the first place. The men scoffed, giving me various reasons why they would rather take their chances with the Horned King than face Jafar's wrath, but the woman seemed curious about what I had to say, and I focused my attention on her. I knew little about Jafar, but based on what I did know, I could make some educated guesses about the rest. "What's her name?" I asked her. "Sidira. Sidira, I doubt the Horned King will be any more merciful than Jafar. If you don't escape, you're going to die here, and it won't be a good death. I think you know that. I saw you looking for a way out. And if he manages to find the cauldron, death won't even be the end of it. Are you really going to suffer that for Jafar? Why? He doesn't care about you. You're a pawn to be sacrificed for an interesting magic item, and once you're gone, will he even remember your name? You can stay here and die, failing to serve a master who doesn't give a damn about you, or you can tell me what he's squandering your life on and have a chance of surviving. The choice is yours." Sidira did not have to think about it for long. "He's been finding all the criminals and street rats he can and offering us jobs. He's looking for enchantment and necromancy. I don't know why. I got stuck with necromancy. I came here because it was either going to be here, Darkon, or Barovia, and I'm not walking into Castle Ravenloft." Smart woman. Did he send people there, too? If he hasn't yet, he will. I pressed her for more details, on both Barovia and Darkon, in order to seem no more interested in one than the other, but she had none to offer. She had chosen Prydain, and she knew nothing about the other missions. Given the quality of the Horned King's minions, it was not difficult for me to acquire one of their keys and release the prisoners. I left the men to fend for themselves, but I brought Sidira with me. "It may be that Jafar's agents are of no interest to you," Yen said. "Perhaps you've already dealt with them. Or perhaps they intend to come to Darkon and obtain items through innocuous legal means, as they did in Gravity Falls." Regardless, this seemed like information worth knowing.
I want adventure in the great wide somewhere.
I want it more than I can tell.
So, lots of reasons could bring you to the land of Prydain, not Prydain in the write-up. And one of those, much like with Brave, I am delighted to report it could possibly be trade caravans.
Trade caravans!
Not that there is a specific natural resource or, like, good that we see. This is not something that there's a strong economic sense. But presumably they've got crops, they've got metal, they've got all this stuff that, you would go to Wales for.
I mean, even just they're a nation at war, and if you're at war, you need lots of stuff.
And we keep using the word generic fantasy kingdom, but you have as much reason to come here as you have any generic fantasy kingdom.
Yeah.
Even specifically, you also have that issue of, as you mentioned, the war. So, lots of D&D games could start with, you are traveling to this kingdom because they're fighting a war against an evil skull guy.
Yeah.
And so your PCs, if they're those kind of heroes, then maybe that's enough reason for them to come to Prydain, is because there's a war against an evil skull guy, necromancy guy.
If, for our patrons who heard the first episode of the Nightmare Lands, if you're the kind of people who are going to be on a quest, and then the guy appears for the side quest, and is like, no, you have to free us from the evil wizard
Yeah, that's what happened. It was Prydain. He was fighting the Horned King.
And his girlfriend died. And now his dreams are haunted by the ghost dancer.
Join the Patreon, understand what we're talking about. So, if you are native of Prydain, if you're starting a game in Prydain, easiest peasiest thing in the world. There is a war, there's an evil skull guy trying to conquer everything with an army of undead, and the High King needs you to come and go adventuring and trying to stop that evil skull guy. Now, another thing, we've mentioned the possibility of the war being the motivation. And once again, for certain do-gooder parties, that's all they need.
Yeah.
But you could have that the PCs are specifically sought out, either their heartstrings or their purse strings are reached for, they're specifically requested to help, or they are specifically hired to help because they have magic weapons.
Yes.
And we've said that's a big thing, that the Cauldron-born are immune to physical damage. So if they hear there are these mercenary, wandering, heavily armed transients who sometimes do jobs for money that have magic swords and magic arrows and magic fireball wands, that is going to be a hot commodity for the High King and his people to fight the Horned King.
Like, I can even see a whole, the mists randomly bring you into Prydain, because that's what the mists do. And you get attacked by Cauldron-born, and you just, take them down like it's nothing because you've got your magic weapons, and everyone in Prydain is like, what the heck? We are taking you to the High King immediately.
And he will pay you lots of money to come help us do this thing.
Yes.
Also, speaking of unique setting elements connected with the PCs, we mentioned the hags. I love the whole they trade for magic items. So that even might be what gets you there, is you actually are seeking out the marshes of Morva and the hags because you find out they specifically have the magic item, MacGuffin, the thing you need.
Yeah.
And so you track that magic item, or you hear about these 3 witches who collect magic items. And so that's what brings you into Prydain.
And then you can even have that, if you're having them as neutral rather than as actively malevolent, then maybe for their own reasons, it's better for them if the Horned King is taken down. So they're putting you on this track to find the Cauldron. In that case, you wouldn't want them to have the Cauldron, probably. You'd want it to be somewhere else.
You'll trade the Cauldron for the thing you want. Like the thing the PCs want. They're like, well, we'll trade it for the Black Cauldron. So that the PCs have to go find the Cauldron. And that brings them in conflict with the Horned King. Live, baby.
Live, baby. Also, again, live, baby, we have that whole that the Horned King has his dungeons full of treasure that he just randomly steals. Maybe he has the thing you need.
Yeah. Perfect. But then, we've mentioned this as a potential thing that will get you to Caer Dallben, which I think is a really good location to have. That kind of, like, home-based location, nice sort of Shire-esque setting. And that is the just wonderful to say, joyous to say phrase, the oracular pig.
The oracular pig. Because, okay, this is great.
Yeah, this is so cool.
In the book, the Black Cauldron was the second book. They take down the Horned King in the first book. So Henwen had nothing to do with the Black Cauldron and finding it because Arawn already had it. The reason that they captured Henwen is because as an oracular pig, she knows everything, or can find out everything, including the Horned King's true name.
Yes!
So we have this oracular pig who can find the true name for, like, For example, honey, in the game I'm currently running, what would you pay for this pig that could tell you the Gentleman Caller's true name?
Yeah. Basically, my character is in Hawk the Gentleman Caller. We have this plan. It involves learning his true name. We're doing a bunch of nonsense, trying to get it from a magic book in Aslan's library. Both of us in the group, I think, would much rather go find an oracular pig. We heard there's a magic pig that can tell us the Gentleman Caller's true name.
Yes.
So just the fact that you have this oracular pig, who can give you any piece of information.
Yes.
That brings the PCs to Prydain, brings them to Caer Dallben, gets them hooked in with Dallben and Terran. Mm-hmm. In the movie, we're going with the movie, the Horn King then is after Henwin to find out where the Black Cauldron is. So, bing, bang, boom, your PCs are on the roller coaster. Like, the bar's coming down, they're going up the hill, they are in the ride, they are in the story.
Yes. And DMs, if you're like, oh gosh, I don't want them to learn everything from the oracular pig, don't worry, she speaks in cryptic prophecy.
Yes, hooray, the best. So the kind of stories you might get, whatever brings you there, whether it's mercenary magic weapon havingness that lets you fight Cauldronborn, whether it's you're looking for magic items from the Horn King or the witches, whether it's oracular pig, the best reason to go anywhere.
How many times can we say oracular pig?
Once you are here, the nice thing, the fact that it's so sort of generic fantasy setting, means you can do whatever fantasy stories, whatever D&D stories you want. That you can have the Horned King as kind of your Skeletor.
Yes.
And you can just be doing session after session after session of just whatever generic He-Man, like whatever story you want in that overall battle against the Horned King.
Yes.
So it's kind of, something that seems a weakness of the setting, but can be a strength. Mm-hmm. However, the Black Cauldron as a hook, as a sell to people, for anyone that cares about that, you're going to want to do some kind of story centered around that titular Black Cauldron. You're going to want to do at some point, maybe after months of He-Manning around and just fighting the Horn King's minions and doing side quests, I think you should have a story about the Cauldron. And you can do the full Black Cauldron story. Because it's a very kind of generic fantasy story, but that means it slots into D&D very easily. Mm-hmm. So you could do one where you come to Caer Dallben, you meet Terran, and the thing I love here is, of course, Terran is going to immediately fanboy your party's fighter, your party's paladin, anybody that seems like a hero. Mm-hmm. Terran's going to be like, just being such a cute little goober, trying to, impress them.
It's like what we were talking about with Dipper. He's going to be Dipper, but for your fighter instead of your wizard.
Yes, exactly. And how can you not be, find that cute? Mm-hmm. And then if Henwin gets taken, if he loses Henwin, he comes crying to the fighter. He comes crying to the paladin. He's so worried. He's so ashamed. Mm-hmm. He feels he failed. And how could that not be the heartstrings of, this little skinny kid who admires us so much is crying and begging us for help?
Yeah, because as much as he wants to be a fighter, he takes his responsibility as assistant to the regional pig keeper very seriously.
So that then gets you in. Mm-hmm. That hooks you in. You go, you say you're going to help him. You set off to find Henwin. And then the story of the Black Cauldron happens. I've mentioned a couple times, I really love the sort of eeriness of the Horn King sending his men to rob graves.
Yes.
And I love that cart coming in full of skeletons of all things.
So wrong.
So another potential inciting incident I like a lot, and I might do if I were running this game, is the PCs come upon the Horned King's men robbing a barrow mound or digging up graves, and just what a weird thing that they find them stealing skeletons. I'm they're stealing the grave goods, but they're also stealing the skeletons.
Yeah.
And that's really intriguing. Maybe the PCs will fight them, or maybe, these are big dumb things. Maybe they'll be like, oh, hey, you there, oh, and attack. But it's...
They're going to be like, what again?
Hey, you there, oh! And that gets the PCs entangled with the story. It gets them, entangled with the Horn King's men, and it foreshadows the Cauldron. That is a great, setting up. This is going to have this Cauldron born. And so, fundamentally, all of this is circling what I think is the most important thing if you are trying to have a game that is inspired by 1985's The Black Cauldron, and that is you have to have the Cauldron Born. You have to have the Cauldron and the Cauldron Born. You have to have a climax involving the Horn King getting his hands on the Cauldron, doing a big Cauldron Born scene, set piece, and then defeating him and, like, getting the Cauldron out of his grasp. And probably also involving a dungeon crawl at the Horn King's castle.
Yes. I mean,
maybe before the
swag.
Maybe before the climax. Maybe, like, a midpoint, and then some other stuff happens, and then they're back there for the climax. But you have to have that Cauldron Born scene. And there are two issues connected with this. Two kind of, like, things to think about as a DM and, like, be aware of. And they're both connected with that issue of the Cauldron. And number one, the PCs are not going to do, I think, most PC groups at least, hey, the Horn King is looking for this Black Cauldron. We better go find out where it's hidden so that he can't get it. Oh no! Yeah, he has it. Like
they know that's where that's going. Like,
you know, yes. Like the smartest thing would have been to just leave it alone. For if Taryn had just taken Elonwy and Fluter, Flamengurgi back to Caer Dalwyn and just that's it. Like not like we need to go find the Black Cauldron. If you are counting on your PCs to go, oh, the Horn King's looking for lost magical artifact. Let's go find it to stop him from getting it. I doubt that. And in a potential, you just know in the book, Rachel informs me, where they specifically get tasked to find it. They specifically get the mission is to find the Black Cauldron.
Because it's like, if you tell your PCs this is what you're supposed to do, this is the goal, they're usually gonna do it. Like, I mean, they're gonna, like, it'll be herding cats along the way, but, like, they do have that endpoint in mind.
If the High King gives them, your mission is to go find the Black Cauldron and bring it back to me. Okay, that's something. And maybe they think they can destroy it. Maybe they think, like, the High King gives him some magic thing and says you find the Black Cauldron and hit it with his hammer and it'll destroy it. And oh no, it won't. But, but that gives him at least, like, the narrative fig leaf of why are we finding the Lost Ark to prevent the Nazis from getting the Lost Ark instead of just leaving it lost.
Yes. It's not like the One Ring. We're like, no, we already know where it is.
Yeah. And it might also be they find out, or the Horn King tricks them. This is a little, you always be a little careful with the guy tricking the PCs. But, like, they think the Horn King knows the location, so it's the race to get it before him. And then, oh no, he's got it. And
maybe even, like, so that it's not that they're butt puppets. It's like, no, he really was close to finding it. Like, you did find it first, but he would have found it if you hadn't found it first.
The second issue, this is a similar issue we mentioned in our Thanos episode with the Infinity Stones. And a YouTube commenter, Ethan Bynan 4680, on that Thanos episode on YouTube, commented a really great D&D version of this dilemma, which is the Tiamat paradox. To quote Ethan Bynan's comment, your players want to have the agency and in-game motivation to stop the latest cult from summoning Tiamat. They want their choices and actions to matter. However, that also means they don't get to bring out the big Tiamat figurine, show off endgame character builds, and get narrative satisfaction and bragging rights for fighting Tiamat. And I'm like, yes, it's like, absolutely, you should have the narrative power and agency and control of the story to be able to stop the cult from summoning Tiamat. And in the fiction, that is what your characters want to do.
Yes.
They want to stop the cult from ever summoning Tiamat. On the other hand, I paid $120 for this miniature. This miniature was $120 plus tax. And I spent 3 Saturdays, like, painting, like, working on the paint job. So you're fighting this. Like, this is happening.
You're fighting Tiamat whether you like it or not.
Happening. Yeah. I am using this miniature. And similarly, on the one hand, the PCs should have the narrative control of the story to stop the Horn King from getting the Black Cauldron. And in the fiction, that is what they want. Their characters want to stop the Horn King from ever getting the Black Cauldron and ever making Cauldron Born in one of the coolest, spookiest sequences of the Disney 80s. However, they probably totally don't.
They want to have that fight.
They want to have that fight. They want to have that set piece. You want to have that set piece. You maybe got a Cauldron mini. Hopefully it wasn't $120.
But you got a whole bunch of individual, unique undead.
That's the equivalent of like, even just by like the Reaper Bone skeletons, you have like a dozen unique undead that have unique paint jobs.
And like each one figured out a little bit about their fighting style.
And that is like, and they each have a slightly different stat block, and that is like a month of Saturdays was getting these Cauldron-born ready. So you're like, this is happening.
I don't know how long it actually takes to paint all this Cauldron-born. Tom and I don't do mini painting. That's like one of our big gamer failings.
I feel like, if you're not spending the whole Saturday, if you're doing like a couple hours Saturday, then a couple of Saturdays will give you a good number of Cauldron-born. The nice thing is that you can't destroy the Cauldron, because that's sort of part of his torment. But you can kind of do a version of Gurgi's sacrifice of you're able to do something that gets it cast into the void. So once again, the movie's a good model. Like, yes, it shouldn't be. He's definitely going to get the Cauldron and do some Cauldron-born. But, like, is this a satisfactory game without that? But even if you do that, you can find some clever way of stopping the ritual and then having the Cauldron cast back into the void. Maybe something the witches give them. And then I remember, this is kind of the squaring the circle. This is the way to have your cake and eat it too.
Yes. Because in the book, the climax was with destroying the Black Cauldron. It wasn't actually in the Horned King's castle, or in Arawn's castle in this case, because in the book, the Horned King dies in book 1 and the Cauldron is Arawn's. But anyway, because I mentioned there are all these kind of like Boromir-like figures who, think that they can use the Cauldron for good. And in the books, that was what happened, was they found the Cauldron, and they brought it to kind of like the head general of the High King's armies. And the Grand General was like, great, now I'm going to use it. And I'm going to have my own army of the undead, and we are going to, in place of a darklord, we shall have a general. And all shall love us in despair. And so he started planning to raise Cauldron-born. He never actually did it. And then they had to destroy it there. So you could have if they're tasked with bringing the Cauldron to the High King or one of his people, then, or even the High King, if they've read the books and the High King turns out to be bad, that's going to really throw them for a loop. They say, okay, now we've got the Cauldron, now we're going to use it. And they're going to start raising Cauldron-borns to get that Cauldron-born set piece, and then maybe even, the Horned King comes and attacks, and it's like the Horned King versus Cauldron-born.
Ooh, that's sick. That's a shot, yeah.
So, you could get a real great set piece out of that, and then I can see the whole thing now, that, the PCs are, pitting the Horned King and the High King's Cauldron-born against each other, and then in the background they're trying to destroy the Cauldron while they're both distracted.
That's a great set piece. So, yeah, that is the, you can have your cake and eat it, too. You stop the Horned King, as in the fiction your PCs want to do, from getting the Cauldron, raising the Cauldron-born, but still have that amazing raising the Cauldron-born.
Yeah.
So, the nice thing here is, with the ending scene of the movie, it's Dolben, and he's, with Henwin, and he's watching them through the oracular water. He's like, well, everything worked out, yay. And
those were his exact words.
Yes, pretty much. And you can have a sort of Dolben-type figure who is kind of doing Doctor Strange, speaking of our Marvel stuff, Doctor Strange in Infinity War, being all of these things had to happen the way they did for the Horned King to not get the Cauldron, for him to lose it, for it to be taken from him. So yes, maybe the High King, or Dolben is I told you to go destroy it. I told you this magic hammer will destroy the Cauldron. I knew that wasn't true, and it wouldn't. And the Horned King would get it, and you'd have a cool set piece and a boss fight. And I'd get to use these minis that I spent a couple of weekends working on, guys. But that was the timeline. I used Henwin's oracular powers. That was the timeline where the Horned King doesn't win.
I have to point out, I'm looking at the outline, and it says, the nice thing is, with Henwin / oracular pigs in general.
Yeah.
There are so many oracular pigs, but we're talking about Henwin.
Henwin specifically. Of all the oracular pigs, here your PCs might run into. So yeah, I thought one of the kind of uncommented on narrative genius of Avengers Infinity War is with the Doctor Strange timeline sequence.
Yes.
It's no, they've filled every plot hole. It is plot hole proof. It is cinema sins proof.
Yes.
It's no, well,
we don't know why, but it is.
Yes, no. If they'd cut off his hand with the portal, he would have won. If they'd sent Star-Lord away, he would have won.
If Captain Marvel had done the snap instead of Tony, he would have won.
He would have won. Yes, no, Doctor Strange looked at a million timelines, and this is the one where they won. And similarly, we had to tell you to go find the cauldron and thus deliver it into the Horn King's clutches, because that's the timeline where he doesn't win.
Yes. So all you do is leave Captain Marvel alone.
So speaking of the Black Cauldron, the challenges that come from that, there's another challenge, and this is more related to the way that ending plays out.
Yes.
Because we've talked kind of vaguely about the idea of, like, the cauldron gets, like, cast into the void. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of our version of the cauldron being destroyed. Not destroyed, because it's impossibly destroyed, but having its power taken away.
Yeah.
Because, obviously, since that's a big part of our torment, we can't have it be like, no, the Black Cauldron's, like, just a pot now forever. It has to still have potential dead-raising ability to be that torment to the Horn King.
Yeah, although I guess he could, destroy the Black Cauldron, and then he could find some other potential dead-raising somewhere else. Possibly by getting all up in the grill of a necromantic Lich King.
All right, yep, so there you go. Put that in your pocket. But presumably, if you want to just keep having the cauldron be a factor, then, as we said, our version of it losing its power is that it just sort of, like, disappears and just out there in the world of Prydain somewhere. Mm-hmm. And he has to start to search all over again. And in the movie, it's the sacrifice of an innocent.
Book also. You have to willingly go into the cauldron, and it kills you, but it destroys the cauldron.
And, like, you could keep that. Like, if you had a Gurgi-like NPC willing to sacrifice herself. Mm-hmm. But unlike the makers of Death House and Curse of Strahd, we don't want to, like, force that.
Yes.
We don't want to say either you have to sacrifice one of your PCs or more likely get an NPC to jump into it.
Well, the Black Cauldron has 999 happy haunts.
So we're thinking instead it could be there's a kind of ritual that vanishes it. That it could be a ritual that the PCs get from the Witches of Morva, or from Dolben, or from the fairies, or from, like, some
Henwin.
NPC. Yeah, Henwin maybe, like, leads them to it. And the ritual, it could be just that you have to do this ritual. So you could do a climax where the spellcaster, the wizard, the sorcerer, whatever, has to, like, do this ritual while the others fight off skeletons. And that could be fun.
That could be fun.
But you had a really cool thought.
Yeah, because that theme of sacrifice is so important. And even, like, I don't remember if it was in the movie, but I remember in the book it was even the whole, like, well, what are you going to do? Destroy the cauldron? What if he has to die in order to do that? So, like, and that's a really good, like, again, kind of you're wondering nobody's going to be able to destroy this thing. So the idea that there has to be a sacrifice involved.
Yes, and even with the movie, you have obviously the Gurgi, but even then Terran gives up his sword to get the cauldron, and then is willing to give up the sword again to get Gurgi back.
Yeah.
That sacrifice is that big theme.
And one way to do that with the PC group that allows them to have that sacrifice but doesn't completely nerf them is that if they do this ritual all together, then, like, they take on some kind of significant hardship temporarily.
Yes.
So, like, they lose a level for a couple sessions. I actually even like the idea that they go down all the way to level 1 for one session.
That would feel serious.
That would feel like a serious thing, and it would honestly be pretty fun just having a session where they're just bumbling around and they're having trouble fighting goblins. Like, I feel like even the players would really enjoy that. And, like, all of their NPCs looking at them like, what is the matter with you? Why can you barely cast Magic Missile? You suggested that maybe they could take a lingering injury,
right? A lingering injury or long-term madness, where it was on 2014 DMGs, and that's another thing that would feel serious. It would feel like something more long-term and more serious than just like you lose hit points.
Yeah, and actually, I'm jumping back into some of the older Ravenloft rules. Tragedy for me, I know. Absolute tragedy. As part of a project that Chris and I are doing for Mega Dumbcast, because I'm getting to guest in a couple bonus episodes. It's going to be really fun. But one of the things that they did there was when you had a madness check, it was too debilitating as it was. So the modified version that is not too debilitating is you lose 1d6 points from an ability.
And,
like, you regain those points 1 per day. And maybe once you regain those points, then you lose the injury or the madness. So, like, if it's an injury, then maybe you lose 1d6 dex. And every day you get a point of dex back, and then when your dex is back up to full, your injury is gone. Or if it's a madness, then you lose 1d6 wisdom as long as you're not a wisdom caster. And you get back 1 point every day, and then when it's back, then your madness is gone. And that gives you a good, like, temporary timer for it.
And that feels intense. Like, any of these things that you don't normally use. So, like, lingering injury, long-term madness, the whole point of them, they're supposed to be a more serious consequence than, like, hit point damage.
Yeah.
Or even something where they lose something they wouldn't normally lose. So, like, losing a level or losing attribute points is going to feel serious.
Yeah. And
as long as you put that, on a timer, they get it back, then that can just be like a really cool, memorable, like really punctuate the sacrifice that quote unquote destroyed the cauldron.
If you want to know what the actual rules are in the 3rd edition Player's Handbook for Madness and how you lose those points, then I will let you know when the bonus episode drops, and you can go check it out and be appalled.
You heard it here first, folks. And then the cauldron vanishes, and then, there's a lot of ways that scene can play out. And it's really what's going to be what's best for kind of wrapping up this kind of climactic boss fight of this adventure. So it could just be like, it's the reset button. It's like all the Cauldron-born die, Horn King goes, and like is gone, and everything's fine, and like the fight is over. It could be if you're like, I still want some stuff, these Cauldron-born are still around. So, like, you still have to fight the Cauldron-born that are there, but he's not making new ones. It could be, and I think I'd probably do something like this, that, like, when it vanishes, it makes this weird, like, black hole that's, like, crumbling the floor of the castle. And you've got this big, like, escape. This, like...
load-bearing cauldron.
Yeah, exactly. It's a load-bearing cauldron. You have to, like, charge out and jump and leap from stone to stone. It's like the floor's crumbling in, and the walls are crumbling in and all that. And that could be a really fun, like, shifting up the boss fight and making that ending feel climactic.
Yeah, I like that.
We also like to we've talked about some potential narrative, potential stories, some potential campaigns you could run for your PCs in this land of Prydain. And we always like to talk about running these games for younger players, older players. I am like smidge skeptical you would have a table of younger players that were demanding the Black Cauldron. But
I don't know if our kids even know it exists.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
But you perhaps, dear listener, is of the age demographic to really love the Black Cauldron and to say, hey, I've got a bunch of skeleton minis that could use individual paint jobs. And I want to draw from this movie that's very important to me to run a game for maybe my kids, these younger players.
Or maybe, like, the Black Cauldron wasn't a huge part of our lives when we were younger. Maybe it was a huge part of your life, so you showed it to your kids. They love the Black Cauldron. We don't know.
And I've written here something that's going to inflame the anger of those people that Rachel mentioned that love the Black Cauldron. Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Take that movie and edit it.
If you want to make
Waste
that movie
animation.
PG. Oh gosh.
Waste millions of dollars in animation.
I'm not even as has been established, and I'm the hugest fan of this movie, but that just hurts my heart.
How dark and how violent are the sliders? That's how you age it down. That's how you make it a little more acceptable for younger players. You do exactly what Jeffrey Katzenberg did, and maybe with some justification the Cauldron-born scene, like, you go through and you slide down the darkness and the violence. There isn't really anything else potentially objectionable. As we've said a couple examples, in this one you might say, you know what, you can stop the Horn King from getting the Black Cauldron. And just, this is one where you die. We keep talking about that Cauldron-born raising scene as the climax, as kind of maybe the reason you're running this game. Maybe, like, really rethink how you're going to do that.
Yeah. And also...
like Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Yes. Also, you can just have him be Skeletor like he was in the movie. Like, we've given him this whole backstory. Yes. You don't need that for kids.
No, we don't need to talk about the ethics of war and generals and attitudes towards soldiers and all. Just look at this guy's evil clothes.
Like, when I was 7, I was fine with Skeletor. And you know what? Your 7-year-olds will be fine with the Horn King as he is in the movie.
Evil clothes.
Evil clothes.
But what about the much more likely proposition that you have a table full of adults that are very interested in doing a Black Cauldron-inspired game?
So I didn't think we were going to need to skip ahead warning, but then I started talking about something really gross from a supplement. So future Rachel is going to tell you how far to skip ahead now. Hello, dear listeners. We describe a pretty nasty body horror ability that's described in Van Richten's Guide to the Walking Dead. I will say only that we use the phrase fun skin things and go from there. If you want to skip the fun skin things, then this pretty much takes up the rest of the Dread Possibilities section, so just go down to the timestamps where the Parting Thoughts section is and go to Parting Thoughts. As always, the aging up is the opposite of the aging down on Jeffrey Katzenberg. Like, if you love this movie...
Jeffrey Jatzenberg.
Jeffrey Jatzenberg.
That guy loves flesh melting.
If you are a huge fan of this movie, imagine the movie you wanted it to be. Think of the movie that's in your head and do that movie. And that is the aging up version. And I don't know if I need to tell you anything other than that. Just, more violence, have the flesh melting, have the huntsman gorily turn into Cauldron-born, just have the Cauldron-born just be scything their way through everyone. Look up the storyboards for the whole deleted sequence and do it. If you need help translating this into game terms, I'm sorry, I wish I could point you towards something that was on DM's Guild. I can't. But Van Richten's Guide to the Walking Dead.
Look for it in your local used bookstore.
Yeah, or it might be... I don't condone piracy. I am an author. I do not condone piracy. But it's out of print. So it might be on the Internet Archive. I was just throwing that out there. Out of print is another matter entirely.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Just, speculating.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Van Richten's Guide to the Walking Dead, it was like when they did a Van Richten's Guide for zombies and skeletons and ghouls and whatnot, and it was like, holy potatoes, why have they not done this yet? And they have some of the creepiest powers. Like, I ran a zombie mash session once where I brought in some Van Richten's Guide to the Walking Dead powers, and I think it was one of the creepiest sessions I ever ran. That was the one where there was the monster that, would start to... It did fun skin things. It did did not have skin. Yeah, maybe...
Fun skin things.
Yes. So that was a thing in that session that I ran where there was, the skeleton, and it would, it peeled off
rip
pieces
off pieces of your skin and put them on,
slap them onto itself.
You don't forget a thing like that.
And what if the Cauldron-born are doing that kind of thing?
Yeah, right.
Just, So, some great powers like that in Van Richten's Guide to the Walking Dead. And then there was a thing in the book that I feel like didn't get really played up in the movie, and that was kind of the horror of threatening to make people Cauldron-born. When the Boromir guy had them all captive, and he was like, Taryn, I see you, I see how brave you are, I see how loyal you are, I really need a guy like you in my army, so I want you to pledge fealty to me. If you don't, you're going to be serving me anyway.
Yeah.
Forever, with no will of your own. And maybe some part of you's still going to be in there knowing that this is happening. I don't know what the Cauldron-born are like.
That is a very good threat.
Yeah, so being able to play that up, the threat of turning the PCs into Cauldron-born, could be real scary.
So, we've talked about potential stories to run in this land of Prydain. We've talked about running them for younger players, older players, much more likely interested in this specifically. Now let's give you our parting thoughts in a section I like to call
Parting Thoughts.
So the first thing we like to do in Parting Thoughts is talk about the genres of horror. These are from Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. They give you different genres of horror, talk about the sort of aesthetic signifiers, monsters, things you might use. It's a super useful section for any kind of horror role-playing. And we've mentioned a couple of times that there's one that's showing up a lot. And that is one that we've seen in our last episode of the movie Brave, but even more so.
Yes.
And I would say I'm reaching to type now the words dark fantasy. Okay, dark fantasy. There you go.
It's fantasy, but it's dark. There's wizards and undead.
And magic swords and magic cauldrons. And just, geez, this is, like we said how Brave was so dark fantasy, this is even more dark fantasy.
This is even more dark fantasy.
This is even more so.
Even more fantasy, even more dark.
Even more fantasy, even more dark. Perfect. I don't know if there's another one, really. Did you have another one?
No, not
I'm
really.
Just, distracted. I can't get over dark fantasy. The light of dark fantasy is so bright. It's like the sun, so I can't see any other stars in the sky.
No, yeah, there's... Yeah, no, Dark
No,
Fantasy.
if you are running a Black Cauldron game, a Prydain game, a movie or books game, any of those, you are running a Dark Fantasy game.
Yes.
So, then we have what kind of game does this domain best suit? A one-shot or campaign. Some domains, like, for example, Barovia, is suitable for a full WotC hardback level 1 to 11 Curse of Strahd style campaign. Others are really like an adventure. So, like, there's the spooky railroad train, Sire 1313. That's going to be one session. Maybe two if you have short sessions.
Yeah.
But that's one adventure. That's not level 1 to 11. There's never going to be a WotC hardback with Sire 1313. In this case, I think you have kind of two options. You absolutely could run a full campaign, especially if you're bringing in the books.
Yes.
Like, because it's 5 books. There's 5 books of content of them fighting Arawn.
And even, like, it's not just Arawn, there are a whole bunch of mini-bosses. So, like, in the books, you have Akron, who's Elanwi's evil aunt. There's this wizard, and he's figured out how to turn people into animals, but that even includes the Fae. So, like, he can, like, do polymorph on the Fae, and the Fae are afraid to mess with him, because what if he's going to polymorph them? There, you've got the Horned King and Arawn being separate figures. There's just, you've got a bunch of different mid-bosses and mini-bosses if you go into the books.
So, if you have the books, you are set for a Curse of Strahd. Curse of Arawn. You can
Curse of Arawn.
WotC hardback, level 1 to 11. You could have this be, if you didn't want to specifically use the books, you could even do a full campaign with just a lot of Welsh mythology. If you're like, I want to read the Magabobian. I want to read that big famous book of Welsh mythology.
Maganobian? I don't know. Sorry.
Maganobian,
something like
less
that.
consonants.
Look for the very long Welsh mythology book starting with M. I could have told you what it was called a couple years ago, but yeah.
So anyway, that book, that one. And so you just get that book, read it, pull Dungeons and Dragons ideas from it, run a level 1 to 11 campaign with the Horned King as your Skeletor. As your boss fight.
I'm sorry, guys. I've read it cover to cover. I cannot remember the name. I'm sorry.
If you are specifically focusing on the Black Cauldron, the movie, I still think that's more than a one-shot. I think there's enough there that's not going to be a one-shot. This is going to be like maybe a level 1 to 4 campaign I could see very easily.
Yeah,
like kind of the equivalent of a starter set. And you can follow that basic structure of the movie. Start with Terran and Henwen, end with the Cauldron Born, and then have a bunch of freedom to do what you want in the middle.
Yes.
Like, the middle could go a whole bunch of different ways, as long as in some way it involves dungeon diving the Horned King's castle.
Yes.
But other than that, you have a ton of freedom to connect Henwen, Terran, Caer Dallben, and Cauldron. So, talked about bringing in stuff from the movie, seeing stuff from the books, bringing stuff from Welsh mythology, a book whose name we are having a devil of a time pronouncing. But is there a book we can pronounce, Ravenloft? Is there any older Ravenloft material they could bring in to incorporate into a Prydain set campaign? There
absolutely is. So, one of the obvious things would be having other Darklords wanting the Cauldron.
I like that a lot.
Like, having the Cauldron in either version of Falcalvania would be interesting. Like, in current Falcalvania, where it's a zombie apocalypse, you've got fighting dead with dead. That could be really interesting. In older Falcalvania, you had Vlad Dracov just kept trying to invade Darkon, and then Aslan kept animating his own dead and Drakov's dead, something back, like, Night King style, and so it never worked. And so you could have Dracov being like, well, I'm gonna fight Aslan's dead with my own dead, so still fight the dead with dead thing. So that could be really fun. And I can't see Aslan wanting the Black Cauldron because he can already do that at home. But there could be other Darklords who would be interested in the Black Cauldron as a MacGuffin, and that could be an interesting thing to look at. And the other interesting thing to kind of bring in from the older material is the character Death, who we've talked a bit about how in the older material, Aslan had his various doomsday plans, and one of them was that he did this thing called the Requiem, which was he killed everyone in Illalook and tried to ride out the wave of necrotic energy, and it didn't work. And that actually turned Illalook into its own, like, mini-domain. And the Dark Lord of that mini-domain is Death. And he calls himself Death, not actually like, the god of death or anything. But he's a clone of Aslan. It gets real complicated. I'm not going to go there. But he's a clone of Aslan. And basically kind of like figured out that he was somehow Aslan's son in a weird way. And he figured it was just in the normal way. He was like, okay, right. I'm Aslan's byblow. All right, that's fine. And he just wants Dad to notice him. So it's this whole like... Aslan is ruling Darkon, and then there's this tiny domain in the middle that is the city that was, once the crown jewel of his domain, and Death is sitting in it like, I got your city, Dad. And Death just is sitting there, constantly trying to get Dad's attention, and failing, because he is not in the same ballpark as Aslan. And you could have a similar thing with the Horned King, like, especially if you wanted Arawn, like... If you have Arawn in the Cauldron, then it's just kind of that level of spite. You've just got death levels of spite. But I'm even thinking you could even have, like, a thing where maybe the Horned King, like, was, a general in the Kargot or something. Yeah. And is like, the Cauldron is a separate thing from the guy he used to work for. And he's trying to get Aslan's attention.
To one-up Aslan, yeah.
Or maybe, he was one of those guys who was working for Drakov and sent his men into Darkon and watched them all get slaughtered and saw his men go down like that.
I like it.
And he's like, oh, no way. And so his ultimate goal is to, like, revive his men and send them back to invade Falkovnia and destroy the guy who killed them. And that could be super cool.
Love it.
Oh, and that's how you turn Vlad into Vladeska.
Whoa!
That's how you turn 2E Falkovnia into 5E Falkovnia.
Undead.
Is the Horned King, sends the Cauldron born in.
Love it. Oh,
and
that's
they're
so
zombies.
good. That's so
snap.
good. Wow. Right, baby. So, the last thing I like to do in the parting thoughts section is talk about the strengths and challenges of running a Black Cauldron 1985 or books inspired campaign. And strengths is great. It's, as we've mentioned, arguably the most Dungeons and Dragons movie Disney's ever done.
I think even more Dungeons and Dragons than Sleeping Beauty, which is the one with the dungeon and a dragon.
But this one has a dungeon die for a magic sword with loot. And it's D&D, but it's not just D&D, it's so spooky. So, very Ravenloft. Like, you could describe this as one of the most Ravenloft movies they've ever done. It's got a great vibe, just everything about the aesthetic, the darkness. The Black Cauldron makes a wonderful MacGuffin, a power corrupts MacGuffin, but also a necromantic artifact. So, like, it's like if the One Ring raised the dead. It's it's so cool. And the Horned King is a fantastic villain just in terms of presence. He's the main thing that's stuck. He's the main thing that's been in the board game expansions, in the House of Mouse cameo, not in the Halloween parade yet, but maybe someday. Oogie Boogie's super scary, whatever. We'll someday have they had Meet Judge Doom, and probably only a matter of time before we have Meet the Horned King.
It's like thinking back to kind of some of the movies from that period. It's like The Fox and the Hound hasn't really survived beyond, like, people talking about how sad it made them. Like, there was no Fox and the Hound content in Sorcerer's Arena or Villainous. The Horned King has survived.
And of course, Ravenloft is so centered around the Darklord. And, D in general, you get so much if you have a really strong villain. There's a reason Strahd keeps getting iterated. That, there you go. That is a strength in a D&D Ravenloft game, a great, memorable villain.
Yes.
What about some of the challenges?
We keep saying generic.
We keep saying the word generic.
We keep saying the word generic. Just, the movie isn't all that fleshed out, and the books, like, I did enjoy them, but they are very Lloyd Alexander read Lord of the Rings, and he wanted to make it Welsh and for kids. They're very Lord of the Rings. It's especially the fifth one. Like, Terran Wanderer is amazing. The High King, I like it, but man alive, it is.
The Return of the High King.
The Return of the High King. There's not much there. you really have to go in and add a bunch of your own stuff, like, especially if you're just going off the movie. Like, if you're going off the books or diving into Welsh mythology, then there is other stuff to bring in. But if you're just going off the movie, then it's like...
Yeah, no.
The Horned King and his annoying goblin.
Yeah.
Just...
Like, I defy you to get a setting just from the movie.
Yes. And then the other big thing is the Cauldron Born. Because in the movie and the books, they're so terrifying. They're just the worst thing anyone can imagine, and being able to raise them is the One Ring.
Like, it is the power.
It is the power, yeah. And they're just the scariest thing in the world. They're zombies.
Yeah, they're skeletons.
It's Tuesday. Like, you have to give them some extra razzle-dazzle.
Yeah.
And having them be immune to non-magical weapons helps. But you gotta bring some extra razzle-dazzle to it. That's really, if you didn't skip ahead for aging up, that's really where I feel like bringing in some of the old, like, salient powers is bringing in special abilities, having them do extra horrible things that your average zombies and skeletons can't do helps. But you gotta work it. You gotta,
Fundamentally, we keep coming back to the Cauldron Born scene in the movie, and it's so good. But in a Dungeons & Dragons world, that's not a thing.
That's not a thing.
That is not a big problem.
No.
So, if they decide they want to run a book or movie or both inspired Prydain Ravenloft game, how can they tell us about what modifications they made to the Cauldron Born to give them that little bit of razzle-dazzle?
Yes, and if you want to tell me about why you like the movie Witches better than the book Witches, I want, please, liking things is better than not liking them. Yes, or Defenses of Creeper.
I'm listening.
I might not, for Creeper I might not be, but for the Witches I am listening.
Might not agree with you, but I'll listen.
Well, you can email us at wonderfulworldofdarklords@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Tumblr, or Patreon at Wonderful World of Darklords. And on YouTube, we are just Wonderful World of Darklord. And statistically, that's probably where most of you are listening.
Yeah, a lot of engagement. So, if you like how we adapted the Black Cauldron into a Ravenloft domain, Rave gave you some suggestions for adventures. Probably like spooky stuff. This one was the first hit of horror. Then I have a bunch of horror movies I have adapted into Ravenloft one-shots. You can find them on the DMs Guild. Just look for Tom Kohler or follow the link for the free write-up for this domain and just look for more by this author. And if you like our consideration, our Jeffrey Katzenberg-like consideration for the youth of America and their traumatized minds, then we also have a couple of resources about running spooky, horror, Halloween-themed games for younger players that you can also find on DM's Guild. Are a little more subtle than Jeffrey Katzenberg's ideas.
Yes. And then I have a picture book, Mother Ghost, Nursery Rhymes for Little Monsters, is exactly what it sounds like. And then I also have several short stories for adults available on my website, www.rachelkohler.com, none of which have Cauldron Born in them.
Or Welsh mythology.
Yeah, or Welsh mythology. Yeah. Also...
Otherwise, you probably could pronounce Mabagobian.
Probably. Also, I realize we haven't mentioned this yet. A quick heads up. If you listen to where our narrator is going next, and you say that is not by any definition a Disney movie, that is because you voted for it, dear listeners, because next month, November, is Listener's Choice.
It is indeed.
So, if you remember what won Listener's Choice, you already know is coming next. If you don't remember, keep listening.
Until next time, that which you chose for us to adapt.
And which Tom is really excited.
Really excited about this one.
I'm pretty excited. Tom's super excited.
I'm very excited about this one. Thank you for listening, and happy gaming.
Parting thoughts. I can see why an army of near mindless and obedient undead would be appealing to one from Prydain. It seems to be the only guarantee of anything resembling loyalty, and in the Horned King's case, they would be noticeably more effective and intelligent than his current forces. However, he is doing his former soldiers no favors by forcing them to serve under him once again. He led them to their deaths, and now he will not even allow them to reap the rest that those deaths should have earned them. I took Sidira to Wyvern. It was a city large enough that even if Jafar learned she had traveled there, he would be unlikely to find her. I confess that I also hoped to take advantage of a few of its amenities before traveling to the next domain on my itinerary, If stress truly is the cause of my nocturnal troubles, a little relaxation would not come amiss. I discovered a sweet shop stocked with all manner of confections, and decided to enjoy a few myself before sending the rest to my niece. Thank the gods I opened the one I did. Thank the gods I did not send it to her. As I peeled away the paper wrapper from the chocolate in my hand, I glimpsed a flash of gold, and I froze. No. I knew precisely what I held, and I knew it was non-transferable. Not that I would ever be so cruel as to foist it upon another. I'm sorry, and said my next assignment will have to wait. I have no choice in this. I know precisely where the mists will take me the next time I enter them, and precisely where I will awaken tomorrow if I do not enter them before then. Because I've got a golden ticket. Regards, D.
The Black Cauldron is indeed a powerful relic steeped in necromancy. The ability to create an army with absolute loyalty to their master and immune to mundane weapons would tempt any belligerent warlord. Perhaps there are a few lesser necromancers that would be tempted by the creation of an undead minion whose caliber is slightly above the average skeleton. However, the majority schooled in the art would find a means to do so without the Black Cauldron's aid. My little witch is correct. The Horn King does not have the finely attuned senses of a spellcaster. He merely plays the part as a thespian upon the stage. Though I despise such falsehoods, he is correct in believing that play acting as a powerful mage will strike more fear into the hearts of his enemies than if they knew what he really was. A revenant that crawled out of his grave to seek vengeance against a master who is already gone. If the Black Cauldron could be utilized to bring true life back into his dead soldiers, his goal would be a noble one. To force them to linger only to bring them back as hollow corpses with no memory of their former life is indeed a cruel fate. But if true life was possible, for them to return to what they once were, is that not the greatest gift one can grant? A second chance at life, chance to undo past mistakes. Jafar's search for the Black Cauldron is expected. I have already personally dealt with a few street rats, the disloyal vizier, sent into Darkon seeking relics of my own making. These ruffians did not have the intelligence of your Sadira and attempted to break into Castle Avernus. Rest assured I have put them to good use. I suspect that Jafar's quest mirrors that of another dreadlord. Jafar desires nothing less than phenomenal cosmic power, the ability to transform his world as easily as snapping his fingers.
Dear Father, perhaps it is presumptuous for me to address you as such, for I have not yet earned that right. However, you expressed a desire that I would someday become your daughter, and as I have previously related, I believe that application of powerful enchantment magic, perhaps bolstered by the enchantment stone, can make this hope a reality. If that does not work, it seems likely that you will kill me when my usefulness is at an end. At the very least, you will kill any part of my mind that is recognizable as Daniel Dany, as the greater part of me will never stop resisting you unless it is entirely broken. Either the title of father is or will be accurate, or I will soon be dead, and it will not matter how I addressed you. I believe I have found the necromancy stone in Prydain, an item called the Black Cauldron. It is unsurprising that it is not the object of Aslan's interest. As he is an accomplished necromancer, the cauldron offers little that he cannot achieve through his own spell work. Besides that, he has stated that he is seeking something of Agrabanian provenance, which does not describe the cauldron. Per your instructions to speculate on the potential applications of each stone, the comparative advantages and disadvantages of living in undead armies are well documented, and I need not restate them here. The Cauldron-born's immunity to mundane weaponry, however, makes them a more potent force than the typical skeleton or zombie. An approach combining the living and the undead could prove devastating. As you can see from my latest report to Azalin, there are 2 potential sources of powerful divination magic in Caer Dallben. Whether or not either of them is the divination stone, which I still believe is in the hands of either Dr. Facilier, Queen Narcissa, or Jack Sparrow, they are well worth further investigation, as divination will aid you in your search. However, the protective enchantments on the Book of 3 may prove prohibitive, as only Dallben can touch it. I do not know how powerful Dallben is, and I cannot speculate on whether or not you can break him, nor do I know whether the book will continue to function for him if you do. I am working on the problem of how best to permanently bend my will to yours while retaining the tenacity that drew your attention. I have been using my dreams to formulate solutions, as well as to analyze potential applications of Infinity Stones. Thus far, as I previously suggested, the most likely possibility without use of the enchantment stone is a thorough application of Modify Memory, which would be effective but impractical. I believe my will is preventing me from making breakthroughs in this area even in my sleep, but I will continue to apply myself to the question. I must also note that, as this Jafar is searching for sources of enchantment magic, he may find the stone first if he is not dealt with. Interrogating his agents as you did me may provide insights on its location. Azalin continues to suspect nothing, attributing my nocturnal episodes either to stress or to surges of wild magic. His intellect is matched only by his arrogance. He cannot consider the possibility that someone could establish a foothold in the mind of his little scholar without his knowledge. This will doubtless work to your advantage. The longer he fails to notice that I serve 2 masters, the more of an insult it will be to his pride, and the more stubbornly he will refuse to acknowledge the oversight. By the time he is able to admit his failure, you will already have claimed both that which he seeks and myself for your own. Hail Thanos. D. This has been The Wonderful World of Darklords. We have no affiliation with Disney or Wizards of the Coast. All music recordings used in this episode are in the public domain and were obtained through museopen.org. Titles and links are in the show notes. Dialogue for Yensid was written by Azalin Rex himself, who you can follow on Tumblr at Darklord Azalin. The Wonderful World of Darklords logo was designed by Haylight Jones. You can find links to their work in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show, look for us on patreon.com or find our tip jar on Red Circle. Thanks for listening.
You could say he is worse than Arwen.
Arawn.
You could say he is worse than Arawn.
He's not worse than Liv Tyler.
No.
I guess he is worse. Actually, no, he's much worse than Liv Tyler. But that's, the fact that he's worse than Liv Tyler is irrelevant.